Okay, we're going to do some web page design. This is lesson 10 using Photoshop. One of the main things that it's going to tell you about this is if you were making an entire website, you would need to automate actions. So before we open up an action set, let me kind of show you what it is. I'm just going to open up something in Photoshop, and you do not have to do this. I'm just showing you. I'm just going to type something really quick. Water. I am in the graphic and web workspace. If you do not see the Actions menu, which normally is right here, you can just open it up by going Windows, Actions. And I'm actually going to pick this up and put it over here so we don't lose it. So this is what the Actions panel looks like. And these are all the defaults. And you probably just have the defaults. These are ones that I have added in on my computer. So there are a lot of these that are default actions. And we're going to use this one called Water Reflection just to show you what it is. Let me show you. In history, you can see the only thing that I've done is I've typed stuff and then I moved it. That's all I've done. If we run an action, it's going to do a bunch of stuff automatically for us. It's going to make a snapshot, convert it. It's going to make a ripple, a motion blur, all of those things. So I'm just going to run this action to show you what it does. Just hit the play. And it has run a little action. You can see it's made all kind of extra stuff. And let's go look in history. Look at all the stuff it did. It rasterized it, duplicated it. So you can see if you wanted to do this over and over again, all you would have to do is go over here and click Run. So that is the idea of an action. Now the book is going to have us create one, so let's do that together. This week we're using the files called Silk. If you unzip that and open it, the book wants you to open up this one called Silk Road PSD. So just double click on that and it should open up in Photoshop. Once again, I am in the graphic and web workspace. So here is our actions panel. We're just going to click right here and say clear all actions. Now we need to make a new action. So we're going to go up to the hamburger menu and make a new set called Portfolio Actions. Click in the hamburger menu and say new set, and we're going to call that Portfolio Actions. And you can see it's made us like a little folder, and we're going to put the new ones inside that we make. We're going to open up the one called culture.jpg. So we're just going to say File, Open, and go get that file. It's in the Costumes folder, and the one called Culture. Just go ahead and open that, and we need to make a new action that goes with it. So we're going to, within this folder, we're going to create new action. And we're going to call this Optimize for Slides. And notice because I clicked on Portfolio Actions, it's going to put it in the set we made. I'm now going to click Record, and everything we do from now on will be recorded as an action until we tell it to stop. So click Record, and you'll see this red has lit up. So it is recording us. So we're going to go to Image, Image Size. And what we're doing here is when we do a website, we need to make sure that these are all optimized for the web. But we need to do this to a bunch of photos. So we're just going to set up an action to do it for us. So we're going to make sure that Resample is on. You're going to make sure that this is clicked so that these will be locked together. And it should be on pixels. So we're going to go ahead and change this to what it needs to be for the website, because we don't want the website to have to load a big, huge pixel if it's only going to use a small photo. So we're going to change this to 1000. And if you have everything right, it should be 1000 by 667. When you're done with that, hit OK. And once it's done, just click Stop to stop the action. Now, if we look at this action, you can see that all it did was it opened up image size and it changed it to 1000 pixels for us. So we've made our first action. We need to save this action set. So make sure that you are actually on the action set, the folder, and we're going to go to the menu and say Save Actions. And you need to go ahead and save it in whatever folder you are working in. And you see it's going to be called Portfolio Actions. So go ahead and save your action set. We can now close down the Culture one and continue on. We do not need to save this. So when you look at all the files that we have for this website, we have a lot of them. We could open up each one and run that action on it, and that would be a lot easier than us doing it individually. But we could also do them all at one time as a batch. And this is the type of thing you're going to need to do if you really get into working with Photoshop and doing graphics. So we're going to create a batch process and run that action on all of these at one time. So back in Photoshop, we're going to say File, Automate, Batch. And this dialog is going to come up. So in the source, we need to go find that folder that we were just looking at. So let's go, we're going to hit Choose and go find the one that was called Costumes that had all those we were just looking at. Costumes. So we're going to select that folder. So we need to do whatever action we're going to run on every single thing that is in that folder. We do need to say suppress color profile warnings. That will just keep it from trying to change the color for us. We're just changing the information right now, the pixel information right now. For destination, you need to tell it we want it to put it in a folder. And the folder we're going to choose is the one called Slides. So go ahead and select that folder. So we're going to tell it we're running this action and we want you to put it in this folder. Now we have to tell it what we want it to be named. So what we want it to be named is whatever it was called. The book wants you to choose lowercase, the second choice. So then the extension, it wants you to write -slide. The reason for this is we're going to have full-size images and we're going to have smaller ones that we use in a slideshow, and it wants you to know the difference when you're making your website. For the third one, it just wants you to choose extension, the lowercase one here. So what it's going to do is it's going to say whatever the name of the file is, then it's going to say it is a slide, and then it's going to call it whatever the extension is, whether it's a JPEG, GIF, whatever it is. And it's going to start with 1 and name them all through. So when we hit OK, it is going to do all of this. It's going to run the portfolio action on the folder we told it, and then it's going to put it in the other folder. So let's hit OK, and hopefully we did it right. And you can see it is running the action. Okay, let's see if we can see those in that folder. Here they are, the folder called Slides. You can see that they are all there, and it has named them starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, all of that, and put Slides. So we are ready to go move on to the next one. Back in Photoshop, we are on the original silkroad.psd. We need to make sure rulers are visible. So go to View, Rulers, and that's these things up here. So you can either right-click or control-click to make sure that this is on pixels. It should be. Let's make sure this one is too. Pixels, either, like I said, control-click or right-click. You should be able to see these guides that are right here. We're going to need those. If you do not see the guides on your computer, go up to View, Show, Guides. They should be there automatically, but if they're not, View, Show, Guides. One thing you're going to want to do is lock these guides before we get started. So go to View, Lock Guides. So now we need to go over into the Layers panel. So click on the menu icon, then Control or Command, and you also need to choose Silk Road, Silk, Text Background, and Background Image. And we're going to lock all of those. So that's this button right here. So they are all locked. And that's just to make sure that we're not messing with those right now. We now need to find the frame tool. If you cannot find the frame tool, you can always go to these 3 little dots, right click, and all of the other tools are there. There is my frame tool. So I'm going to click on the frame tool. Now before we use the frame tool, do make sure you are on the rectangular one. So using those guides, we're just going to click right here and draw until the edge of it. And that has created a frame. Now an empty frame is going to have a big X in it, and we're just saying that's where we're going to place something. And you can see that it has made a new frame over here in our layers. It's just waiting for us to put something there. We're now going to put one of the photos. So we're going to say File, Place Embedded, and we want ones from the costume folder. So remember, the costume folders are the bigger. Slides are the ones that we just made that are smaller. We're going to use from the costumes folder. And we're going to choose Feature 1 and hit Place. It took that and put it in the frame that we created. So you can now see in the Layers panel that we have two things. We have a big frame, and then so we have the frame, and you can see that the frame has been filled with something. So you can see that if you click on this, you're moving the frame. I'm going to undo that. If you click on this, you're actually dealing with what is inside the frame. I'm going to undo that too, because we need to change the size of this. We're going to click on this and we need to transform it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You can see this is how big the actual picture is. I'm going to say Control T, which is free transform, and that means you can scale it manually. Now you will notice that I'm accidentally smushing and squeezing this out. So in order to not do that, you need to hit Shift while you're dragging it up and down. Or you can just type it in up here what you need. So do you see up here is the width and height? So right now it's defaulting to percentage. The book wants us to tell it the actual pixels. So that's okay. It wants 590 space px for pixels. And hit OK. Now, one of the things that's happened with mine is I did not have this locked right here, and so it only changed the height and the width. I'm glad I did that accidentally. Let me undo. We need to make sure that this right here is clicked so that it's going to do both of them for us. So let me try this again. I'm going to type in 590 pixels. Now our picture is the right height, but our frame is still really big. So now we need to change what the frame is. So to do this, you can just make sure you're on the frame over here in the Layers panel, and then you can just pull it and it will snap right to the edge so that it'll be the same as the picture that is inside the frame. Oops. Make sure you're grabbing the middle controller. Once we've got that, it needs you to pick up the entire layer. So just click and make sure you're on the actual layer and move it over until it clicks right to the side of the frame. So now we need to grab the frame tool again and draw another frame. And you guessed it, we're going to do the same thing that we just did a second ago. So we're going to go through these same steps again, and we're going to add Feature 2 and Feature 3. So I'm just going to click on one, Control, and click all three of these. And then you should see this up here. We're going to align them all by the top to make sure that they're all aligned. And you can see it just popped them up a little bit. You should save your work at this point. We're now going to use the puppet work like we did in the Einstein project. Go down to your silk layer and unlock it. And we need to turn it into a smart object. So while it is selected, go to the hamburger menu and say Convert to Smart Object. Now that it is a smart object, we can use the Puppet Warp tool. That's in Edit, Puppet Warp. And you should be able to see the mesh. If not, click on this Show Mesh button. And here in Mode, we're going to choose Distort. So the first pen you want to add is where you think the middle might be. So click on the middle. We're going to add one in the upper left-hand corner just to anchor it. Now this time when you add this one, you're going to click and drag it until it's off the screen. Now click in the lower right-hand corner and drag that until it is distorted off the screen. Now you can kind of move this until you get it the way you like it. And the book is going to let you kind of distort this to the way you want it. Now don't go too crazy with it. Make sure there's no parts of it that are showing the background through. So it lets you just kind of distort this. Make sure you're not covering up the heading or anything like that. I like that. When you're done with your design, just hit Enter or the OK button. You're now done with that, and you can save and move on to the next part. Now this is stage 3. It wants you to kind of look at what you've made within this artboard. So realize that this is an artboard. Think of it as if you had a desk and you had several pieces of paper on it. So artboard 1 is our first piece of paper. If we were designing a website, we might need one that was for web, that was for a PC. We might need one that was for mobile, one that was for an iPad. So we might have several artboards. So we need to unlock all of our layers. So anything that's locked, just unlock it. Now that everything is unlocked, we need to rename this. So if you double click on that, you should be able to rename it, and we're going to name it Web Large. Then you can kind of collapse that and save it and move on to the next thing. So for the next part, you need to check your preferences. They are probably fine. I'm going to go into Edit, Preferences, and just go to General. Then look here at the plugins, and the book wants you to make sure that you have Enable Generator. It is probably turned on, so you can probably just move on to the next part. Click OK. So the next thing you need to do is go to File, Generate, and make sure that this right here is checked. If you see that it's checked, you're fine. If not, you just have to click it, and now it will be checked. So if I go back and look, see, now it is checked. So now that you have to make sure that that's on before you continue. What happens when you do this is in your original file, Photoshop knows that we are using this Silk folder. Notice we just have 2 folders. One is called Costumes, one's called Slides. Once we start doing this image assets, it is going to create a folder and it's going to start throwing image assets into that folder. So once I turn this on, it's going to do it. So let's watch. To go to the Layers menu, go to Costume Design, Control, and Silk Road. So we've chosen these 2 things right here, and we're going to make a new group, which is this button right here. And we're going to name that group silk-lg for large.png. And if you look inside that, you can see that it took those 2 layers and it put them inside that folder called, or that new group called Silk Large PNG. Let's go look and see what's happening on the back end. You can see that there is a new folder created, and if we go inside that, look, there is silk-lg.png. So it generated that asset for us. Once we turned that on, it just started generating assets. Now, the action that is creating these image assets, it's adding the extension .jpeg, .gif, whatever that is. So we actually need to do this to some other ones, but we do not have to add them into a folder in order for it to happen. So the book needs us to do this for menu icon. So just click on menu icon, double click it, and we're going to name it menu-icon.gif. Naming it something that has a dot whatever is going to put it into the image assets. So we've done that for menu icon.gif. We now need to go to the one called text background, and we're going to call that text-bkg.jpg, and also go to the background image, and we need to name that body.bkg.jpg. If you go and look, you should have all of those image assets. So that's 4 altogether. We can now save and move on. So the next part of the lesson is dealing with coding. And I know a lot of you may not know any coding yet, but there's 2 main types of code, HTML and CSS, that we deal with. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. So that is the style of the website. We can take a lot of that information from Photoshop to be given to the coders, or we can code it ourselves. So this is going to show us how we can grab the code from Photoshop. So go to your layer called Heading, and let's change the name of that to H1-LG. Now we need to right click. Make sure that you don't right click on the thumbnail, click on the actual word H1LG. If you right click on that or control click, you can get copy CSS. So it's going to copy the code for us that it's created for this. Now the book wants you to open up it's kind of confusing. It says open this up in any text editing application. So what it means is Microsoft Word or something like that. So if you go back to your files, you will see that they have this file called Type Style CSS, and you can see it's a cascading style sheet. So if you just right click on that, you can say open with, say, Notepad or Microsoft Word or whatever you have on your computer, just anything that can read text. I'm going to open mine up in Notepad. We're going to paste what we just copied. You remember we copied the CSS? We're going to place this point right after here on line 3 where there's nothing, and we're going to say Control V as in very good. And that is going to paste what we already have. So you can see it has all that information, that H1. So when we create this website, we want all our headings that are H1 to be ATC Ox and the font size of this and the color and the bold, all of that we have chosen as a designer, it's giving us the code. So this is just showing you how you can copy the code of what you've created in Photoshop and paste it into any code generator. We now need to get the CSS for the body copy. So down here where it says lorem ipsum, we're going to rename that body dash copy dash LG for large. Once again, click on the actual word, right click and say copy CSS, and we're going to put that in our text file. Go back to where your text file was, go down to the empty area and Control V as in very good. So we now have our H1 defined and our body copy confirmed. Save that and close that file. Okay, so we're now going to make some new artboards. I'm going to scroll out a little bit, just Alt, scroll your mouse. And we have the web large, but we need to make one for a cell phone over to the side. So I'm going to grab the Artboard tool, which should be the second one down if you're in the web graphics workspace. And you will see that these little dots come on, these little plus signs come on the screen saying, I want to add an artboard. So don't copy me yet. I just want to show you. If you click it like this, it's just going to make a new artboard. That's kind of not what we want to do. I'm going to back up. This time I want to alternate click, and it's going to make a new artboard, but it's going to copy what I have in my other artboard into this. So now we have an exact copy of what we had before. And if you look over here, it copied all of our layers and everything. So on this second one that's called Web Large Copy, I need to change the name of that to iPhone V. So as you guess it, we're going to make this the size of an iPhone. So make sure that is selected and that you are still in the Artboard tool. And up here where it says size, we're going to change it from Web Large to iPhone 876. Now it has created an iPhone for us, but we do need to make sure that it's in portrait mode. So while you're still in the Artboard tool, click right here to say we need it to be portrait. We don't really have room for these two files, so I'm just going to click on Feature 2 and 3 and delete them. Now on Feature 1, I'm going to click on that, and remember we still have our Generate Image Assets on. So if we change the name of this to something that has JPEG or PNG in it, it's going to generate an asset. So I'm going to call this silk-iphone.png. So it now has generated that for me as an iPad or as an iPhone picture. Now we need to grab this that is called Body Copy LG, and we need to change the size of it. So if you click on it and then grab the Type tool and click anywhere inside it, do you see the bounding box looks a little bit different now? So if we change it now, it's going to change the font that's within it. So the book wants you to grab this and resize it to 570 which you can just get it pretty close. There, 572, that's pretty good, and 250. So 570 by 250. And just get it pretty close, make it fit inside this box, and you'll be fine with as far as my grading goes. So 570 by 250. Yeah, this is kind of, there we go. Pretty good. Okay, so we've got that correct. Now we need to fix our photo. So now grab your Move tool and make sure you have the entire Silk Phone iPhone.png in here. Not just one or the other, but make sure both are selected. With the Move tool, pick it up and move it down. And we need to make it a little bit bigger. So we're going to hit Control-T to free transform. Grab the lower right-hand corner and just make it until you just barely see a little bit of the black. I'm going to move it up right underneath there. So you just want to see just a little black on each side of it, basically like that, and hit this OK, or you can hit Enter. Now we need to change the frame. So it's okay that that's going off the screen, but we need to click the frame. So if you remember, this is the picture, this is the frame. So make sure you're on the frame. Then you can just grab this bottom part and make the frame smaller so it fits within our website. Now we need to change the font so we can see it better on a mobile phone. So click on the one that's called Body Copy Large. And we're going to go ahead and rename that to Body Copy iPhone. And we're going to change it to be 32-point font and 44 leading. You can see that makes it a little bit, the spacing a little bit easier to see on mobile phones. So we now need to do the heading. So the heading for the phone needs to be different. We're going to rename that H1 iPhone. And for H1, we need it to be 48-point font and 48-point leading, which once again will make it easier to see on a mobile phone. And the last thing we need to do is we're going to transfer this CSS over into our CSS document. So let's do the body copy first. I'm going to click on the word body copy, right click, copy the CSS, go open up your CSS file and paste it in the next area. Go open up your CSS file and paste that underneath the last two that we already had. Now go back and get the other one. Okay, so now we have all the CSS for all of the different styles that we've created of font. You need to save this. You will have to turn this in along with your PSD.